and welcome to this special show out of London. The UK's political crisis has once again reached a new zenith with the resignation of Prime Minister Liz Truss today. Truss has had the shortest UK premiership, one riddled with policy U turns, catastrophic financial decisions, and resignations of two key cabinet ministers. Liz Truss has failed to deliver on her pledges and has consistently been losing support of both her party and the public. It was only a matter of time before she was forced to go. And today is that day. Joining me on this panel discussion are Lord Rami Ranger, he's a peer in the House of Lords and a member of the Conservative Friends of India. He has been a staunch supporter of Rishi Sunak throughout the campaign that Rishi undertook not very long ago to become the leader of the Conservative Party. We also have Pranav Bhanot, a lawyer and a Tory councillor from Chigwell, and Mark Runnicus, a British diplomat who, for 25 years, he was posted in New Delhi and then he retired from there and worked with India as an entrepreneur and has been very closely associated with this India UK relationship for over 40 years. Thank you for joining me in this panel discussion. But let's quickly go back and reflect on that announcement made by Truss at Downing Street. It was a car crash for the Conservative Party, the shortest serving Prime Minister in UK history. Let's listen.
I came into office at a time of great economic and international instability. Families and businesses were worried about how to pay their bills. Putin's illegal war in Ukraine threatens the security of our whole continent, and our country has been held back for too long by low economic growth. I was elected by the Conservative Party with a mandate to change this. We delivered on energy bills and on cutting national insurance. And we set out a vision for a low-tax, high-growth economy that would take advantage of the freedoms of Brexit. I recognise, though, given the situation, I cannot deliver the mandate on which I was elected by the Conservative Party. I have therefore spoken to His Majesty the King to notify him that I am resigning as leader of the Conservative Party. This morning I met the chairman of the 1922 committee, Sir Graham Brady. We've agreed that there will be a leadership election to be completed within the next week. This will ensure that we remain on a path to deliver our fiscal plans and maintain our country's economic stability and national security.
Lord Rami Ranger, you met Liz Truss very recently at the Conservative Party conference. Did you think she would be resigning from her post and leaving Number 10 so soon?
No, she was very upbeat at that time because those were early days, honeymoon period, and she was quite upbeat. But unfortunately, the reality dawned on her and on the country because what Rishi Sunak has said. I have warned. I had said Rishi was the right candidate with a lot of experience. He was a chancellor at the most unprecedented time when we were facing COVID. He was the chancellor who's used his imagination and had this furlough scheme, which not only saved many businesses but many families also. He kept the economy stable during most challenging time. He had the ability, he had the knowledge. Whatever he said during the election campaign, he has been vindicated. He has been proved right, and unfortunately, Liz has proved wrong. She came with all this inducement of load, giving people money after borrowing money from other people. You just cannot run the economy, on that basis. That you borrow money to give people tax cuts or whatever, promise she did, which she has admitted that she was unable to. A lot of people voted because of this inducement, which was not sustainable. Even Rishi warned of high inflation, high mortgage rate, and the pound will plunge, and we will lose all the respect in the market. And this is what happened. Nobody took notice of Rishi, and I think now the time has come to put our trust in the person who warned us of the consequences, and we did not give him the opportunity to continue with this plan to bring stability and growth into the party. And finally, I would like to say that the free trade agreement between UK and India can be the mother of all free trade agreement between the fifth and the sixth largest economy of the world. India is a huge market of 1.4 billion people. Half a billion people are middle class and upper middle class. This is the population more than Europe and America put together, and they can pull British sluggish economy with the strength of 6 to 7% growth rate in India. Growth rate is a very big growth rate for a big country. It's not a small island, India, and India is the largest buyer of defense equipment, whereas the British defense industry is contracting. And JCB example is in front of us. They had one factory, now has two factory, make in India. Their earth moving equipment they're making in India so competitively that they are now exported to 90 developing countries. That is the strength of Indian economy, and that's
Right.
what India can offer. And we have seen the COVID during COVID, the production of vaccine in India, the scale of production which India can offer on many items is phenomenal. That would benefit UK enormously, but this will only happen if Rishi is at the helm of the government, because Rishi will get a lot more out of India than anybody else, because he will be one of them, and then therefore he will be able to get a lot more concession, a lot more deals, which we do need. So I pray to all my conservative voters that this is the time not to repeat our mistake. Let's not judge people on their color or whatever. Let's judge them on their caliber.
Yes, absolutely. And I can see what you've just raised echoed through several Conservative Party members. They have, when Rishi Sunak has been, silent over the past few weeks, we know that. But there's been several of his supporters coming out and saying, "See, Rishi told you so," and that's exactly how the markets and how the political scenario is being playing out in the UK right now. Pranav, I'm going to get you in here as a very young conservative politician in the field. How does this entire chaos spell out to you? What do you see within this? What can the party do to strengthen itself?
I think the past few weeks have been very unfortunate. We saw it coming. It was warned by Rishi Sunak during the leadership battle as to what would happen if we went too quickly and lower taxes at this time. And he was spot on. And it's impacted people in their 30s, my colleagues, my friends. We have worked our whole lives to try and save up for a mortgage. Then the term comes to an end. And because of just what's happening with the economic climate, many of my peers have been completely unable to afford mortgages. Now, we can't blame it all on the Prime Minister, but you can't say that Liz Truss wasn't warned about what would happen if she were to put into effect her economic policy. And I think it's unfortunate. We all want to go behind a leader of a country, but it's unfortunate what's happened. But, we all saw it coming. And what really does cross my mind is, well, what if there was somebody else saying what Rishi Sunak said over the summer? Would they have been elected? And that's the key point, really. He spoke a lot of sense, but he wasn't given an opportunity. People were saying anyone but Rishi. So, whether it's Rishi or any other leader, I think they should certainly learn from what Rishi Sunak has said, because he spoke a lot of sense. And it's unfortunate what's happened, but I hope this now brings stability in the economic scene in our country, because it's actually been pretty embarrassing with all the U-turns and what's been going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said that we cannot blame Liz Truss entirely for this, but Liz Truss has spent the past few days blaming everyone else but herself. Penny Mordaunt was asked in the comments today what this means for the Conservative Party, and her reaction to that was very British, but let's just look at it and then we'll talk about what you have to say to that. If we could
Very
just
important bill which will modernise the statute book. And I would say to the honourable gentleman, with regard to other matters, I am going to keep calm and carry on, and I would suggest everyone else do the same.
keep calm and carry on. That seems to be something that is the response of any crisis that Britain faces. Mark, what do you make out of that? And is this a field day for the opposition parties?
Thank you very much, Ruhi. Pleasure to be here. Honored to be on a panel with these eminent thinkers, of who I am not one. But I would like, nonetheless, if they will forgive me as members of the Conservative Party, to talk a little bit of politics and just make 2 points on the political front. One is that I do think that in any grown-up moment of British political history, this would be a moment for a general election. It should have been a moment for a general election months ago. But at this point, for the Conservative Party to drag out the agonies that this country is going through is spectacularly irresponsible. And the time has come for the British public, whose livelihoods are at stake, of all ages. I know you're shocked to find in your 30s that it's impacting on you, but old people, young people, the country's future are all at stake here. And all of this really has very deep roots in the problems in the Conservative Party. And they are demonstrated nowhere better than the fact that the Conservative Party put in place a prime minister with a very, very slim mandate, a mandate which was, as we know, did not constitute the majority of her parliamentary party. She had the smallest mandate in terms of the vote from the very few members of the Conservative Party. And on the back of that, somehow Conservative Party leadership thought that they could put forward a radical set of fiscal measures which have led us into the terrible mess that we're in now. And this sort of political illegitimacy, I'm afraid is the only word for it, is something which has really got to be put behind us, and that can only be put behind us by having a general election.
Yeah, so the general election seems to be the call of every opposition party, but we cannot escape the fact that we are in a huge economic, fiscal, financial market challenges that are cropping up every single day. But it seems the market are sort of relieved that Liz Truss has resigned. We do know that the Chancellor Jeremy Hunt did manage to bring in some economic stability with his statement a couple of days ago, but he has said he will not be standing from the Prime Minister's position. So who's going to be next? I know there's been a lot of campaign here on this panel as well for Rishi Sunak to come back. But if not Rishi, who else could take that position? Would Boris Johnson be brought back from Ranger?
No way, because the rules are two last candidate, which is Penny Mordaunt and Rishi Sunak, will go ahead. I forgot to mention the Liz Truss made blunder after blunder. First was the mini budget, first were the promises, and because this just shows the immaturity. And the third thing, she failed to unite the party by giving posts to people who did not vote for her. She only went for friends and cronies who ticked the right box for her, and she did not go for the talent. And she left herself vulnerable to the attack from those disgruntled, heavyweights. And so one mistake led to the other. And I'm here to on record to say I did request the Prime Minister when she was that you must be magnanimous and you must go out and reach to Rishi, give your deputy prime minister and give him the position of his choice, and so that we are and give people who have voted for you, Rishi also. And you can't be vindictive. The country, you are running a country, not a family. That you have to make sure that talent is given the opportunity to lead the nation and not friends, because friends are not will have the track record of success. And when you surround yourself in short grass, you appear to look tall, but you're not tall. and that has brought her down because she did not take advice from people who are a lot older than her and a lot senior than her in party. I've been in party for nearly uh, 45 years. Yes, and I wasn't a Lib Dem at any time. I've been conservative when it was very unfashionable to be conservative. It was a four-letter word, but we stayed in. We made sure the party changed and we make it a ethnic-friendly party. But we never left. And no matter, I was being thrown out of party for speaking out, then brought back. So we went through a lot of suffering for the sake of the party and my community, because I used to tell them a vote to the other party is a loss of two to us, and we are no longer a struggling a community. We can give you money, we can give you vote. We just want to be treated as equal. Where unfortunately in business where people headhunt, in politics people actually undermine others to surge ahead, and this is where the political party don't last after 2 3 election. And I hope now the nation will give Rishi a chance, because he has been vindicated. He had warned before the election that you cannot give inducement by borrowing money and giving them tax cuts. We need to make sure the market stays stable, and because we are going through a very difficult period because of Ukraine war. Russia has pushed the prices of food and fuel through the roof. People are struggling to make their end meet. And the recession is upon us, and this is not the time to start selling, distributing sweets to people. This is the time to tighten our belt to come out of this crisis we find ourselves in. So I think if the part, well, I'm sure Rishi, I will have a word. If he gets prime minister, I will make sure I go and talk to them that we have to bring the talent back into the cabinet, not just cronies, because people, should not be penalized just because they didn't tick the right box. So
Yeah,
I think the
absolutely.
keeping is right.
You mentioned a very important point that you
And
raised.
Ruhi, if we have an election at this time, that will plunge the country into deeper crisis. So the first we have to bring stabilization. Then in 2 years' time we have to go to the country for mandate.
Yes, absolutely. The political uh, class right now is the most important thing that we could perhaps do in this country. But you also did mention that Liz Truss brought in her cronies. We saw that through Kwasi Kwarteng, the disaster of the mini budget that came out. Suella Breverman single handedly derailed that FTA, that really important FTA between India and the UK. So whoever comes back into power has to be very cautious about who they put in that place and how that is going to impact UK's position in the world. Pranav, do you have any thoughts on who should be in the cabinet?
Well, that is the $1 million question at the moment. Obviously, I think, given what Rishi has been talking about throughout the summer period, it should be people that follow a similar line of economic philosophy as has been advocated by Rishi. And we're almost there. I mean, you've got Grant Shapps who's come in, you've got Jeremy Hunt who's come in. So the only real person who hasn't come in yet who was supporting Rishi is Rishi Sunak himself. However, there needs to be a sensible leadership ahead of us now. Like Rami has said, this is not about getting cronies in. This is about getting the right people in that share the right economic viewpoint to try and get stability in a country that has made U-turns, has been embarrassing, and we've really got to move things forward now. So I think I think a balancing act needs to be done. I think you can't always just have different factions. You can't have one faction making up the whole front bench. So I think it needs to be a balance between those that have been Liz Truss supporters, those that have been Rishi Sunak supporters, but fundamentally, I think it has to be Rishi's economics and not Liz's economics that really drives our agenda going forward. And as what the respected diplomat has said, with all due respect, the parliamentary session hasn't come to an end yet. And I think when it does come to an end, that's the time for a general election. But I think the Tories have got a lot of work to do, and I have full trust in whoever comes in to get things back on the road.
Mark, let me bring you in. Is it enough to just ensure that people in cabinet positions are aligned to an ideology that is beneficial to the UK and does not take any more drastic steps and plummet again the markets and the pound? Is that enough? And do you see Rishi enter Downing Street with all the stories of racism that we heard over the campaign? Is this still a possibility?
Well, to answer your first question, I think that there is a real problem in the Conservative Party, in that there are so many factions now, that if you're trying to look for people who are aligned to Mr. Sunak, that you're going to struggle to come up with enough people to fill the responsible cabinet positions. Obviously, I, like, much more importantly, the markets and others, are now more optimistic than we were this time yesterday, because it looks like we may have some grown-ups coming back into power, and I personally would be thrilled if Mr. Sunak was the party's choice. Is he going to make it or not? When we spoke during the leadership election, I said I thought that the Conservative Party might be wise enough to pick someone who would win, and that they might be willing to swallow his rather realistic and gloomy analysis of the position Britain was in. I was proved wrong. I hope that, having seen now the result of their failure to listen to the sensible advice that he has given, they will turn to him to say, try to get us out of this mess, at least for the time being, until the general election comes, whenever that may be.
Whispers from the Conservative corridors say that Rishi Sunak could be the man in Downing Street, but he is new, he is untested in that position. Would it be better to bring back Boris Johnson, a man who has captured the imagination of the country, won hearts of several or the majority of the Conservative members? So if it goes to the peers, it might be Rishi Sunak. If it goes to the membership, it might be Boris Johnson. Last comments from all three of you. Who do you think will make it to Downing Street? Lord Ranger?
I think it is very difficult for Boris to come, because the party rule says the last two who were remaining will have to go forward now, because the Boris has no chance of entering the fray, so to speak. And I have put my money on Rishi being the Prime Minister, Jeremy Hunt being his Chancellor, and if Priti Patel can come back as a Home Secretary, that would become and Grant Shapps can become something else. It'll be a very, very strong team, heavyweight with a gravitas to, to keep the members of Parliament under check, and also to bring, the trust and the confidence of the market. So I am putting my money on Rishi Sunak, and I think because he's a very young, energetic, dynamic, highly educated, Stanford MBA banker, so he knows how to turn the economy around, and he had demonstrated his skill during the COVID pandemic. Excuse me, COVID COVID pandemic, when he came up with this furlough scheme, and where he invested a lot of money to in safe to saving the livelihoods of so many people, and small businesses. And we are now a shortage of labor force as a result of what action Rishi took at that time. So I think Rishi.
Pranav?
The
Mute,
diplomatics.
unmute.
I haven't been involved in politics as much as Rami and Mark here, but one thing we do know is never say never, and a week is a long time in politics. So it may be that Boris. You can never rule out Boris, but I think I agree with Rami. It will be pretty difficult. But I'll say this: people were annoyed at Boris for the house parties that he had over the pandemic. Well, people are far more annoyed about not even being able to have a house over their head because of the crisis we have at the moment. So I personally would absolutely love Rishi to come in. Why not? I mean, give a good reason as to why not. He was spot on during the summer. He's been vindicated. I think this is his time. I think people are ready for Rishi. But who knows? And I think the Conservative membership will get behind whoever comes into post. But the economic plan has to be in the way Rishi has advocated over the summer.
Mark?
Let's remember that Boris Johnson fell because Conservative members decided that he was a political liability. And I don't think by having put in place and lost someone who's even more of a political liability, their judgment will be particularly changed about Mr. Johnson's political impact on the party. So I think the chances of Mr. Johnson coming back in the face of that sort of political reality are pretty slim. What I do think is that whichever of the two leading candidates, if we assume that they are, as we speak, the leading candidates, so Pranav's quite right, a week is a long time, whoever does come through, Rishi or Penny Mordaunt, that whoever of them wins will work together, and unlike Liz Truss, will bring the other into power, and we can see some kind of stability, at least for the time being, in the leadership of this country.
Well, there's been a massive clamor for Rishi Sunak, as you've seen on the panel, and of course across the country there is a clamor for Rishi Sunak to come back and to take that place in 10 Downing Street. If not, Penny Mordaunt is not too far behind. There are also talks about bringing Boris Johnson back because he brings instability, it is said. But again, like you have mentioned several times on this panel, a week is a long time, and we have seen in the UK that even a few hours can turn the tide. We haven't heard from Rishi Sunak at all. He's awfully quiet, so we do not know if Rishi Sunak himself would want to come back into mainstream politics, if he would want to come back as a leader at this point in time when the Conservative Party is on a downhill. It's almost a given that the next general election will swing the Labour way. Is this the brightest idea in the political career of Rishi Sunak to jump in at the forefront right now, or wait and watch and make a comeback when the time is right and the tide is set for him? Of course, we'll see how this pans off over the next couple of days, over the next week. We will be speaking to several other politicians over the next few days, so you will get all the insights from the UK. Thank you for joining me on this panel, Lord Ranger, Mark Ranikas, and Pranav Bhanath. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.